Hello world and welcome to Jeff the Pharmacist. Today I want to talk about something that is just kind of really my opinion on something, and that is talking about opioids and carfentanil and kind of exactly what that is. So there's a tendency for drugs to develop almost a persona. Like there are like bad boy drugs, there are rock star drugs, there are party drugs and all kinds of different drugs, and I think in a lot of ways that's unfortunate because drugs can be useful therapeutically, but once they have a reputation for being something, then it can be difficult for scientists to study them and difficult for doctors to use them. I'll give you an example. So in the United Kingdom, actually, heroin is part of their is one of the drugs that they can prescribe for patients. It's heroin is now I believe heroin is twice as potent as morphine, and really what potency is just the amount of drug required to create a similar effect. So I have patients that come up to me and they ask me tricky questions. So one of the tricky questions that they'll ask me is this pain medicine, is it strong? So you're like, I don't know exactly, you know, because people are often afraid of pain drugs and they want to know, is this like gonna make me like a instant junkie or something? And the answer is usually no. So when we talk about potency, really it just is, you're talking about the amount of a drug required to cause a certain effect. So fentanyl is kind of responsible for a lot of deaths, and I think that's because of unscrupulous drug dealers putting it in their heroin and not really measuring it out appropriately, and people getting more than would be like a dose or what have you, and it's actually causing respiratory depression and killing people. And fentanyl itself is just like a tool. It's a drug that has been used for pain relief. It's in patches. It's used IV in the hospital. It's there's a certain amount of morphine that would be similar to fentanyl, and there's a certain amount of hydrocodone or oxycodone or hydromorphone. Really, there's even charts to kind of explain. Like I have here, there's 30 milligrams of oral morphine is about the same as 7.5 milligrams of dilaudid, 10 milligrams of oxymorphone, and about 30 milligrams of hydrocodone. But hydrocodone was in a different schedule as these other drugs. Now it is a Schedule 2 drug, but it used to be a Schedule 3 and 4 drug because it had Tylenol in it. And really, the Tylenol wasn't so much for pain relief. What it was is it added kind of a liver toxicity to it, so people couldn't take too much without getting liver toxicity. That was kind of the strategy behind why it was in a Schedule 3 versus Schedule 2. But really, there's an equal amount of hydrocodone that you could take that would be equal to a certain amount of heroin or morphine. So all of these opiates are very similar. And that kind of leads me to carfentanil. So carfentanil is $10,000 times more potent than morphine. And so the scary part about that is that you could have, you know, a million doses of carfentanil in like a Coca-Cola can. So it'd be very difficult for law enforcement to actually find the carfentanil and control it and what have you. So that's why it's very scary. It's also very scary because and I believe this has made its way into some of the illicit heroin supply. So if some of this gets in there, it could really hurt people. there's just not very many probably therapeutic uses for it. Though if manufacturers decided to make carfentanil tablets with like tiny little amount in there, they could probably figure out how to make one that is similar to a tablet of hydrocodone or morphine. So I just want to kind of clear up, there's really no magic in carfentanil. There's no, all it is it's very similar in chemical structure, and I can show you the chemical structure, and you'll see it's extremely similar in structure to fentanyl. And what it does is it just binds to the mu receptors of the body with greater affinity. So drugs often have, well, drugs almost always have specific sites of action that they work on. So opioids work on mu receptors. Mu receptors are in the body, and once the drug the molecule interact with basically a site on the body, it's like I guess it's part of the cell, or a polypeptide, or part of the cell, and some kind of a reaction will occur that leads to basically a chain reaction. So and these mu receptors, they're useful in the body because your body is capable of creating pain relieving chemicals on its own. So for instance, so I don't want to brag too much, but I ran I swam, bike, ran a 70 mile, not the badass Ironman, but the half one that's a little less badass. So I did that, and people were, you know, falling off their bike, getting hurt, getting right back on. So certain exercise and things like this release a lot of these pain relieving chemicals. Some of that is attributed to kind of the runner's high, and they bind to the mu receptors, and that's why if you're, you know, running a marathon or something, and you might, when you stop, you might feel an incredible amount of pain. During the race, you might not feel any pain at all. You might feel fine, and that's because of endorphins and things that are released, and they attach to, probably among other sites, but the mu receptors, which is where the opiates attach, and that's kind of why we have them in our body. And we discovered a long time ago, when we discovered opium, that we can manipulate that for an effect. So carfentanil is used in the United States to subdue large animals. That's kind of what it's used for. I'm sure that they could use a larger amount of fentanyl to do the same thing, but they, I don't know, I guess if they have to shoot a dart at the animal, they would put carfentanil on that in order to subdue an elephant or elk or maybe a lion. So that's kind of what the purpose is now. I don't think other countries it's legal, but it is legal as a Schedule II drug in the United States with limited production. So I just wanted to use the kind of the controversy around carfentanil to sort of explain that opiates in general, they just have different potencies, but all potency is the amount of drug required for an effect. So I hope you guys found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe. It'd be awesome to have you as a subscriber. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks a lot.